Hi everyone, this is Claire Kim from the Here and There Collective. We are here today with artist Cindy Ji Hye Kim at her second solo show with Casey Kaplan. Welcome, Cindy. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. The title of the show is Saboteur, a Prehistoric Wish. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind this title?
Sure. When titles, it's a fun, free associative exercise, much like painting. And so, they come in the last minute, but because of the themes of the show has a lot to do with the, themes of the fall and the winter, this period of closing and ending. I was thinking a lot about, what it means to end things on one's own terms. A prehistoric wish, that's a Freudian term for it's a happiness that is our not conscious wish, but unconscious wish that was developed in your childhood. So it's not like money or material gains that will bring you happiness, but it was the unfulfilled wish in your childhood that bring you happiness. So I was sort of thinking about, the concept of death has always been like a big an interest to me, and there is this unconscious wish not to die or to kill oneself.
Sure.
Saying, but this death drive that propels life forward.
This relationship to closings, endings, seasonally, you're thinking about fall, going into winter. With this relationship to death, I think there's also a real generosity in making the structure of the space very stable, very kind of, you come here, you're guided by these figures kind of sitting in the corners or edges of the space. I really enjoyed kind of how my body naturally navigated throughout the gallery.
Good. Do you that?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit about these wooden figures? They're quite different from how you had interacted with wood in your previous work. And they also have a very specific traditional relationship to Korean funerary practices. And I, as a Korean diasporic person, was someone who really didn't know about these guys. And reading about them afterwards, I was curious if this is something that you had grown up with or something that you had found in your research.
Yeah, I found in my research, there was a time I was looking at a lot of ancient Korean art, and I think for the longest time I didn't want to reference Korean art, but as I move kind of further away from, or how I feel about my identity, the more that I gravitated towards these ancient objects because they seemed less familiar. So I came across the bukdus and I had seen them before. There's at the National Museum in Korea, there's a big display.
Yeah.
It's very colorful. Obviously, it's not black. It's
painted in different colors. Yeah.
Painted in different colors. I thought they were very cute.
Yeah.
And joyous, and the juxtaposition between the kind of celebration of death was really interesting. I thought, it would be great to kind of transmit that cultural knowledge by actually making them myself. Carve these by hand. And I actually presented them for the first time in Korea during Freeze, so 2 years ago. And they were displayed in a much different way, along with these paintings that I had made when I was reworking them in my studio. It just made so much sense to displayed them above eye level, as if they're bodyguards of the space when you walk in. But upon closer reflection or inspection, they look, hopefully they look inviting, or they're supposed to be dancing, playing instruments. And
They really do. They feel extremely friendly.
okay, yeah.
And it's like, I felt a nice surprise. So you walk in and it's your classic kind of monochromatic paintings, a real relationship, or kind of surfacing of death. And then you kind of look up every once in a while and there are these very friendly little beings. And there's something very otherworldly. And when I was reading about Gokdu and their purpose of kind of leading or joining the dead to their next destination, someone guiding, that made a lot of sense. And I wanted to ask you about the activities that they were doing, because some of them were playing instruments, some of them were kind of sitting on other animals. There's something really playful about the activities. Did you have fun choosing what they were each up to?
Yeah, and I guess it had a lot to do with my capability as a as a sculptor or carver. So I did kind of have to pick. It's like, okay, I don't think I can do the drums. It's too complicated, but I can do someone, raising a hand or upside down. Because I don't see myself as a sculptor. That when I was carving, it did really show this kind of childlike sensibility, because I was so rough with them. And with painting, I have a different relationship. If there's so much control and so much minute decision making, that's too, at this point, too adult-like. And sometimes I miss that about art making, where I'm just totally playful and letting the materials guide me. And I think at least that's how I've been trying to approach painting, or the way the sculptures have informed my theme. This is that less control, and try to go with what the painting wants to do.
Maybe you can speak a bit more about the paintings themselves, your relationship to materiality within the exhibition, as well as the relationship to the traditional medieval calendar that you've done so much research on, and that's kind of coming out through all of these works.
Sure. I think I love talking about materials, and I think that's all really, if you ask painter, that's all they care about. In the end, all these other, subject matter, kind of like a nice sprinkle. I've been working with graphite, charcoal, and different shades of black pigments for a while, and they all really started with me just wanting to make better drawings. If you ask any artist, drawing is at the heart of everyone's foundation. Something very immediate about the hand, at this very ubiquitous tool that's the pencil and the pen. So yeah, for the longest time as an artist, you're taught that drawing or a sketch is this a preliminary thing, that almost like a skeletal structure that needs to be fully formed into a painting with color. And I at some point thought, oh, why does that exist? You could just kind of collapse the two. So working with grayscale palette called the grisaille, and in traditional Renaissance painting technique, where it's used as an underpainting before being glazed over with color. And I thought that was such a beautiful metaphor for the unconscious, and this kind of the muscle memory of like your artistic intuition is less filtered, something like that. So yeah, to me, the material choice of the grayscale, bringing the underpainting up to the surface, it's like bringing the conscious to the conscious level, like that kind of activity is, yeah, to me, like at the core of what I want to be doing as a painter. I've always been attracted to new art. I think probably because of my entry into it is the biblical art, like church settings, stained glass and architectural elements of a Gothic church or something. And yeah, it's when I first learned that it was mostly for the illiterate churchgoers, could say propaganda, educational context to illustrate the passion Christ.
The message.
Yeah, message, moral teachings, and sure. And using image to do that. As an image maker, that's kind of the ultimate fantasy, is that you can communicate something through pictures rather than, let's say, through words or numbers. And that's so romantic, right? Because every picture has their own language too, like genres and styles. And I hate the idea that you have to learn to like look at pictures, and especially in contemporary art, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like Chomsky's theory of language, that like we are innately born to respond to, like have aesthetic experiences, and we have access to beauty that does not need to be learned. Yeah, I was first looking at the genre paintings of Millet or even Bruegel's Peasant series, the wedding scene, and his Six Season series. There's a kind of joyous connection to nature. I'm sure contemporary art historians will, say, oh, look how he fetishizes the farm laborers, or, the class dynamics of the peasants and the lords, etc. Just as like a painter, I think that does not take away the joy of looking at these paintings. I think there is something so powerful about these lack of interiority that's been depicted in these paintings, so that there's a connection that's bigger than to oneself and to the world. Personally, I feel so, as a modern contemporary person, so disconnected from my environment and even my history, that it's just refreshing to look at these.
I really liked what you were saying about the ways in which we're taught to look at art, right? So I feel personally, and I think I speak to a lot of people in our field who have to work so hard to unlearn a lot of how we think about what a good work of art is and why we decide that that is what it is. And I find myself feeling that the most helpful in that process is to kind of go back in time before I had any kind of education on art making, art practice, art history, and thinking about what are the rituals in my home as a child that I felt had a sort of magic to them, and the things that kind of call me to those moments. And so I really like that you're thinking about this relationship to, the Gothic architecture as well, because of this absence of language, this absence of kind of more didactic text. It's the awe, it's the stepping in and just feeling overwhelmed by the imagery, the space itself. And that makes a lot of sense as to how that's in relationship to your painting practice and why that's important to you. Maybe from there we can speak a bit about your your letter series, because I think that's also in relationship to this kind of translation as well as education and understanding.
The letter series is, like a very kind of foundational practice in my studio. It all sort of started when there was a moment when Korean letters started to look like shapes and forms to me, almost if I was looking at Sanskrit or Arabic or Hebrew, I would just think, oh, look at those like squiggly lines, right? Because I have no connection or have like a cerebral understanding of language. And with Korean, though it's my first language, my mother tongue, after years of not practicing it all the time and English sort of taking over, looking at the letters, I'm just like noticing that, oh, it's very geometric. It's very rectilinear. And I thought, this could be a really interesting way to think about image making. So back in 2019, I was drawing a lot of scaffolds and architectural elements, just anything that reminded me of the Korean vowels. The vowel character is the circle, but those hinges, the so anything that kind of sort of reminded me of that. And then I stuck in a figure into the composition, thinking about this kind of like fluid feeling of the vowel, like moving inside the mouth. And that was like a really productive way to actually create distance from my painting. The paintings didn't have to be about a story or about something. It just had to be about what it means to breathe or have your body engaged in this restricted limitation of a canvas. And as a painter trying to breathe life into this flat surface, that felt very much like the relationship between the vowel and the hinges of those vowels. So so that was kind of the starting point. And fast forward about 5 or 6 years of just using that kind of system as a way to generate compositions. It kind of transitioned into looking at farming tools as like a scythe or sickle or plow. How when I was looking at them for this series, how they kind of mimicked certain body skeletal structures, and I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to kind of like morph those two, the body and the farming tools, as if it's the vowel and the consonants.
There's something very tactful, even with the introduction of the kokdu in the work, as well as the letter series. There's this marriage that is happening between the letters, but also something that is completely outside of a Korean-ness. I wonder if you want to talk about showing your work in Korea versus showing the work here in the States, and I don't know, the different kind of emotional charges that feel either the same or very different.
Thinking about like my own relationship to my identity, it's like accepting that, okay, there's been a lot of Americanization that has happened to me, and that's part of me. And there's a certain part that I can't get back, and nor do I want to, about Koreanness, the constantly accepting of those environmental changes and personal changes that I think are what makes life beautiful. So, showing in Korea or using Korean references in my art, it's almost like I'm an archaeologist or something. I'm just digging and And the whole job as an artist for me is to make these familiar things unfamiliar, and then unfamiliar things to familiar things, so that we can just look at the world differently, or look at myself differently and be surprised. So, yeah, because so much of art making feels like an autobiography, like the kind of narrative that we tell ourselves of being like, this is who I am, this is what happened to me, and therefore, equation, this is the art that I made. But experience and reality is never like that. It's multiple timelines happening, sort of unfolding in different ways. So we can really just grasp little bits and pieces and try to make the meaning of artworks, or the meaning of autobiography, is in the process of gathering those little bits in itself, and not the finished product.
Thank you so much for talking with me. Your show at Casey Kaplan is open till October 25th. So for folks viewing, please join us at the gallery through October 25th. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Paris. Yeah.